The dollhouse?
No.
Really? What's going on here? And why am I wearing this dress?
Yes. Well, can't help you with that. But if you can bring me some tooth wheels, like this one, I might be able to exchange them for some extra firepower.
Hey, don't fool me, puppet.
Tooth wheels or nothing.
The best compliment I could give Alisa is how it could be a long-lost PS1 survival horror title. It looks and feels that authentic, beyond the higher frame rate. It's a love letter to the early era of survival horror, but not a carbon copy. It has its own unique spin on the formula. While it was released in October of 2021, the developer's cut recently dropped, so I gave it another spin. Besides, I was a backer of the game. With it being October as of writing, now is a great time to give it a spin, or revisit it if you played it before. There are a number of new additions, from weapons to endings.
What? After you tried to kill me?
It's you who killed me.
You don't look so dead.
Alisa is a Kickstarter title with a modest budget. Kickstarter-backed titles can vary in quality, but Alisa is among the best. And it's not one of those projects with the old guard with notable titles under their belt. Most of the work comes from one Casper Croaz of Belgium. His name pops up more in the credits than Kojima at the beginning of a mission in Phantom Pain. Hey, it makes sense here. His wife wrote the music and is the voice of our protagonist, Alisa.
Where am I? What is this? I need to get out of here.
It's influenced by classic survival horror titles, along with the 1988 stop-motion film Alice by Czech filmmaker Jan Svekmeyer. The dollhouse design gives it a unique flavor. It's less spooky and more creepy. Alisa has a simple premise to get us going.
Alright, listen up. Tonight, a spy stole important blueprints, and he got away.
Playing as Alisa, we head out to find this spy. After a nice little jaunt through town, we're separated from our partner Jean while chasing the spy.
Jan, what are you doing?
I swallowed my cure-dent.
Are you okay?
Go, Alisa. Don't let him s'échapper.
Here, use the rat signal in my backpack.
We're then dragged down to the dollhouse, and Alisa begins. As mentioned earlier, Alisa's presentation nails that early era of Resident Evil clones. The amount of love and care put into making it as authentic as possible is staggering. Each room has a unique flair. There are some great uses of the fixed camera angle, like this one for example. These distinct rooms allow you to navigate through the dollhouse with ease. Yes, you have a map, but rarely did I have to use it. This is something a many number of Resident Evil clones struggle with. Alisa doesn't fall victim to it. Well, until you get to the maze, but that's the point there. The music in Alisa is fantastic. Most rooms have a unique track. Many are in a waltz, 3/4 timing, and complement the dollhouse design. Some feel like they came from a mid-90s point-and-click title that you would play at your cousin's house. One also feels right of Banjo-Kazooie. With the focus on classic horror comes cheesy voice acting. While it's intentional, it doesn't come across as forced. It doesn't feel like it's nudging you in on the fact. It's tongue-in-cheek, but it's also sincere.
Sorry, I just came to grab this key.
Ah, yes. Someone new has come to have some fun.
It also has some nods to famous lines of old.
I was almost a sandwich.
Let's talk gameplay in Alisa. It takes many of the foundational cues of classic survival horror. It also adds its own twist to the formula. We'll be exploring in and around the dollhouse. We'll find keys, solve puzzles, and unlock shortcuts as we progress. We will deal with enemies and bosses along the way. On the layout of the dollhouse, Alisa has a mix of interconnected and siloed off sections. The beginning section of the house acts as a central point we'll return to. As we progress, we'll unlock shortcuts that loop back. Some areas like the circus room and garden are more siloed off. Alisa passes what I call the draw it out test. If someone asked me to draw the layout, I could do so with a high level of accuracy. The areas that you'll need to revisit all have distinct designs. The only issue I came across was this one door that, unless I missed something, you can't unlock. In the last stretch of the game, there is some backtracking required. Not being able to unlock this one door led to some further backtracking that felt a bit like padding. It's the only example that jumped out at me. Otherwise, I found the layout excellent and memorable. There's a variety of puzzles in Alisa. Not huge brain teasers, but you'll likely spend a bit of time working them out, like the game's first puzzle, the slide puzzle. Ah, the slide puzzle, my arch nemesis. I appreciate that most of Alisa's puzzles don't need more information to solve. The kind where you find a note elsewhere, write it down, and then use it at the puzzle. Even the ones which do so get a bit creative and simply don't hand you all the info. How does Alisa handle resource management? Alisa does not have a limited inventory. Resource management comes from conserving ammo and spending tooth wheels, the currency of Alisa. Defeating enemies will drop tooth wheels. We'll find some tooth wheels about the dollhouse, but that's a rarity. So to really earn these, you'll have to defeat enemies. Combat here is traditional survival horror. You have the option to unlock auto aim with an upgrade or start the game with it enabled. Else, you'll have to aim yourself. The target cursor in the lower right will let you know if you'll hit. It feels a bit iffy, but it's something you'll get used to. Melee is a viable strategy in Alisa. Some melee weapons can do a fair amount of damage and stun lock enemies. Ammo is sparse throughout the dollhouse, besides the store. The store is where Alisa pulls from other titles beyond survival horror. On the Kickstarter, Casper mentioned there's an influence from Bloodborne and Call of Duty. Yep, Call of Duty of all places. That being more for the loadouts. We could buy supplies like ammos and medkits. We could buy guns, dresses, and mods. Each dress has different attributes like higher defense or faster reloads. As well, of course, as a change of fashion. You can carry only 2 weapons at a time. Mods could add more defense, auto aim, and other abilities. Saving isn't free, requiring 1 tooth wheel. This is where the decision making lies in Alisa. How many tooth wheels do certain enemies drop? What should you buy with your tooth wheels? Should you save now? While areas will respawn new enemies as you progress further, there are still a finite number of enemies. Unless you find the fishing rod, because yes, there's a fishing minigame in Alisa. As using melee weapons is quite viable, I went with it as much as I could to save on ammo until needed. Defeating bosses will reward you with a couple choices, but you can only choose one of the 2. Yes, I would have loved a limited inventory. I love that style of resource management. That said, the tooth wheel system that Alisa uses works very well with its design. It encourages more playthroughs and is very replayable. On bosses, there are a handful to deal with. They are well designed with their attack patterns and working around tank controls. Although I found most of them went on a bit too long. They had a bit too much health, I found. There's a large enemy roster in Alisa. They're very much in the dollhouse theme. Not what I call scary, but more creepy and unsettling. They have distinct designs and sound cues. These spiders with their top hats sound like they're smoking a bowl. These little buggers on the tricycles can be a pain to deal with. I have to know about one weapon you can unlock. It's a javelin that you could stab with or toss at enemies. I love this weapon. Although at points, tossing and missing may result in it disappearing until you leave a room. There's also a nemesis-like figure who could pursue us throughout Alisa, although she is easy to lose. You could just leave a room and return back in. Alisa is well-paced and doesn't overstay its welcome. You can expect around a handful of hours for a first playthrough and shorter on replays. It has a fairly minimal story, piecing together aspects from notes and conversations. So if you want something that's an authentic love letter to mid-90s survival horror, Alisa is your game. If you played it previously, it's worth checking out again with its developer's cut. I look forward to seeing what Casper does in the future, not just with future updates for the game, but future titles. Thanks for watching. Do what the YouTube algorithm loves. If you'd love to support the channel further, consider becoming a YouTube member or joining my Patreon. You'll get featured in the credits here, early access to videos, and weekly updates. Thanks everyone. Boulder Punch out.